The expansion goals of small and medium enterprises in Nigeria are facing obstacles, especially with the ongoing foreign exchange crisis and high inflation rates. As Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.19% in Q2 2024, inflation rate has surged to 33.88%. I said that earlier on the show, creating a challenging environment for SMEs, which represents over 80% of the labor force. So, Dr. Josh Bamfo, partner and head transfer pricing Andersen in Nigeria, joins me to talk about the impact this is having on SMEs. Thank you so much, Dr. Bamfo, for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Foreign exchange crisis is hitting SMEs, particularly import-reliant industries, hard. Efforts of the CBN to resolve the issues and stabilize it seem to have failed. What are the real problems, and what does it portend for these businesses?
So the way we can analyze the impact of what I would call the macroeconomic challenges in Nigeria on SMEs is to look at the three major markets that are interrelated but are very important for businesses. The first, obviously, is the market for goods and services, where most SMEs play in. So how does the performance of that market affect SMEs? First and foremost, we've seen the fact that there's high inflation. That means the prices of goods and services in that market are growing at a much faster rate than in normal. So as you rightly said, October numbers shows that inflation rate has surged back up to about 33.88%. What that means is that if I'm a small or medium-sized business and my input prices have gone up due to the high inflation, and I cannot pass on the additional cost to my final consumers, be it customers or clients, then it adversely hits my bottom line, and I have reduced profits or even losses, and that can be detrimental to SMEs. The second aspect is to look at it from the consumer's purchasing power. When you have very high inflation, such as what we're experiencing now, that means that the purchasing power of your clients, your customers, have been eroded. That means they cannot demand the same quantity that they could have demanded in the past when inflation was relatively low. With that decrease in demand and with associated increase in costs, that adversely impacts how SMEs can even survive, let alone expand. So that is basically looking at the impact of inflation on SMEs within the goods and services market. The second market that is also critical for their survival is the market for funds. And the price for the market for funds is interest rates. What we've seen is that the CBN, in their quest to combat high inflation, have been consistently increasing the monetary policy rate, which then impacts interest rates across the funds market. With those high interest rates, that means the cost of borrowing for SMEs becomes more expensive. So even when they want to diversify, they want to expand, given that the cost of borrowing is too high, they cannot actually make those additional investments. And so that also adversely impacts SMEs. The final market I'll be looking at is the market for Forex. So if you look at the market for Forex, the price of the market for Forex is actually the exchange rate. Once again, you've seen a significant devaluation of the exchange rate over the course of this current administration. Compared to June last year, when the current administration took over, there's been over 300% devaluation in the currency. The power market used to be around 600 naira to a dollar. Today, we are looking at around 1,700 naira to a dollar. What that means is that if you're an SME and you are import dependent in terms of your input costs, or you're a trader, you purchase products from offshore to sell locally, your cost of sale goes up significantly. And once again, if you cannot pass on the additional cost to final consumers, it adversely hits your bottom line and could run you into losses. So clearly, these three markets are all in turmoil, and all three markets are adversely impacting SMEs. And that's a big problem for SMEs in terms of their survival, let alone think about expansion.
Oh, so basically what you are saying right now is that with all these challenges that SMEs are faced with in the country, they should just jettison, expansionary plans or growth plans for now and focus on survival, if that can be done?
Basically. So rather than, because you would have, SMEs would definitely be thinking about growing and becoming large businesses, right? You start small and you grow to become big. and you will hope that the government will create an enabling environment that will enable you achieve those medium to long-term goals. However, the current environment we find ourselves looking at the three markets I just talked about, goods and services market, funds market, forex market, are not conducive for businesses in terms of its survival, let alone think about expansion.
But then everybody sees it. You mentioned it earlier as one of the challenges, the hike on interest rates. And we're already seeing the attendant effects on businesses in the country. So why can't, the central bank either maintain or reduce interest rates, since there is this is actually further fueling inflation more than is actually slowing down the economy?
So yes, the Central Bank of Nigeria faces a dilemma, right? Their number one mandate is to achieve price stability. That means bringing inflation down. Now, they have limited tools to be able to achieve that. The most common tool they have, is to make changes to monetary policy rate, which they have direct control over. Now, there's this economic theory that basically says that, look, if you increase monetary policy rate and interest rates goes up and the cost of borrowing goes up, it will reduce investment demand by firms and consumption demand by households. And that reduction in demand will help bring prices down or stabilize prices. That is a theoretical concept. Question is, practically, given the sources of inflation, is that particular policy effective or not? Because it has unintended consequences. Anytime you increase monetary policy rate and other interest rate goes up, you're really hurting the real economy, even though you are trying to stabilize prices. So there's a dilemma in there because of the unintended adverse consequence. My view has always been this: the Central Bank of Nigeria cannot be exclusively dependent on increases in monetary policy rate to achieve price stability. In fact, what we've seen is that a major source of the inflation is not even on the demand side. It's not because there's excess demand for goods and services. It's actually on the supply side. We've seen food inflation being too high, and one of the reasons is because of food insecurity in the areas where food production occurs, which is affecting the production of food products. The second thing has to do with cost of transportation, which is highly impacted by exchange rate. Anytime our exchange rate weakens, fuel prices goes up. And when fuel prices goes up, transportation cost goes up, and the final product cost to final consumers then goes up. And that's the reason why we're seeing high food inflation driving the headline inflation. The third element is the middleman that actually purchases these products, food products, from the the cities or the towns where they produce the food to the urban cities. They have an incentive to actually divert those products to neighboring countries that have stronger currencies, such as the CFA, Benin. And that also creates shortages. So I think that the Central Bank of Nigeria should start thinking about focus on exchange rate stability, actually crashing the exchange rate to create an incentive for fuel prices to go down, and therefore price of goods and services to also go down. That exclusive dependence on increasing the monetary policy rate hasn't been effective, and we've seen it. We started seeing a gradual decline in inflation rate from the peak of 34.1 in June. Now it's going back up. The last 2 months, we've seen consistent increase in inflation rate once again, and that tells me that their strategy is becoming ineffective.
But then if you say that your strategy is becoming effective and we see inflation figures spike, we still recorded a GDP growth by 3.19% in quarter two, up from 2.51% in quarter two, 2023. So is that pseudo growth? Because for government, probably might say that is an excuse for it to stay its course with these policies, even as there are other things that needs to be done in terms of FX stability and availability for these businesses. But then how do we tie that together in terms of the growth that we've recorded in GDP?
So what we need to be mindful of is that even a GDP growth rate of 3.19 isn't something you can celebrate about. We have a population growth of about 2.5%. So if you look at it from a per capita point of view, we are not doing great. In fact, the current government promised us that we're going back to the 2016, 2015 period, where GDP growth rate used to be around 6%, 7%, 5%, right? So it's not something we can celebrate. Now, I think we have a potential of actually getting to those times. We have a situation whereby fuel prices, crude oil prices globally are pretty stable. unlike when we had our first recession in recent times. So in terms of the oil and gas sector, that's a good thing in terms of crude oil exports. What we've seen is that political changes, in the West, with Trump becoming the president, that means that the oil sector will continue to be vibrant. There wouldn't be a quicker transition to, fossil fuels and all that. So there are opportunities for some sectors to actually do well. It's incumbent on the government to continue to create an enabling environment for those businesses to thrive. And one of that is to create an economic stable, environment.
Okay.
Today, we're not seeing that. And that's a problem. So I don't think that they can actually hang their hat on a growth rate, Q2 growth rate of slightly above 3% and be excited that they are doing well. We've seen foreign direct investment decrease significantly based on the most current data that we found that was presented. And that should be a concern. That means that independent foreign investors do not see Nigeria as a favorable destination when it comes to long-term projects. Yes, they might come in and buy our stocks and what have you, but those are hot money. They come in and they leave. What you need is actual investment in long-term projects that can create job opportunities for the teeming Nigerian masses.
Well, in the local parlance, the Nigerian government might just be looking at you right now, Dr. Bamfo, and be saying that at all, 9 bad pass. But then it would mean that a lot needs to be done if we are hoping to open the vista for economic growth for the country. Dr. George Bamfo, partner and head transfer pricing at Andersen Nigeria. It was nice talking to you. Thank you so much.